Every RPG these days tries to reinvent the genre, but Bravely Default 2 doesn't try to change the mold, just kind of refine it. It has deep mechanics, that classic charm, and just enough modern polish to stand out. Join me as we take a closer look at Bravely Default 2. Bravely Default 2 isn't just trying to recapture the magic of classic JRPGs. It's trying to modernize them without losing what made them special in the first place. When this game released on the Nintendo Switch in 2021, it had a lot to live up to. The original Bravely Default and Bravely Second became a cult favorite on the 3DS, and fans were hoping for another deep job system, thoughtful combat, and a nostalgic return to form. What we got was something familiar, but also very different. In this review, I'll walk you through what stood out to me across the story, gameplay, visuals, and pacing, as well as the overall structure, with the hope of helping you decide if it's the kind of RPG that fits what you're looking for. So pull up a chair while we talk all about Bravely Default 2. So let's begin talking about the story. The narrative structure of Bravely Default 2 is intentionally traditional. You follow four heroes: Seth, a shipwrecked sailor; Gloria, a princess of a former kingdom; Elvis, a Scottish-sounding scholar; and Adele, a war-torn mercenary, as they seek out the elemental crystals that have been scattered across the world. The setup is simple, perhaps too familiar, and even predictable, but the storytelling isn't really about complexity. Being familiar is what draws you to it. The Bravely series has never really been all that deep. The writing leans into high fantasy themes such as fairies and dragons, and some very dark themes. But honestly, the characters are what carry the game. They're all incredibly fun. Each character has their own goals and perspective, and their interactions, especially those optional party chats, help develop their relationships in a meaningful and consistent way. By the end, those characters that you disliked, you really end up caring for. Now, the plot twists can be a bit unbalanced, some are more effective than others, some of them don't exactly make sense, but the emotional core of the group stays grounded. The game also presents morally gray decisions in some side story arcs that add unexpected depth to the world building as well as the lore. It's important to note that the story pacing is incredibly uneven. Some chapters are tightly written and full of narrative momentum, while others slow down considerably and are just a pain to get through, especially when the game asks you to backtrack or revisit previous areas. Unfortunately, for most of the first 70% of the game, it follows the same plot progression. Reach new town, town has a problem, you find villain causing problem, defeat villain, find villain was working under someone else, that other someone else is using the power of the crystal, defeat that someone else, the crystal accepts the character as a warrior of light, defeat that someone else, and chapter ends. It can get pretty exhausting doing the same thing over and over again, which is kind of a theme of the series, but overall, if you're looking for a straightforward classic RPG journey with earnest characters and an evolving world, it succeeds in delivering that. Just don't expect something that is going to blow your mind, and you'll have a great time. Gameplay is exactly what makes Bravely Default 2, along with the rest of the series, stand out, and kinda where it justifies its name. The combat of Bravely Default 2 is turn-based, as it should be, but it's enhanced by the unique Brave Default system. If you've played the Bravely Default series, or even the Octopath series, you'll know exactly what makes it special. Choosing to Brave allows a character to expend BP and perform up to 4 turns all at once, while Default lets them defend and build up BP to save up turns. It creates a rhythm of combat that's much more strategic than it looks at first glance. You can save up enough BP to use 4 all at once with no repercussions, or you can go into negative BP, where if you don't end the battle, then you have to spend several turns building up positive BP before you can perform another turn. Timing when to unleash multiple actions or play defensively becomes crucial, especially during boss fights where enemy behavior is unpredictable and you can have your entire party dead in 1 turn. But outside of the Brave and Default system, my favorite part of Bravely Default 2 has to be its job system. As you play through the game, you're regularly unlocking new jobs, each with its own progression path and passive abilities. Each job has 12 levels initially. Each level grants a new ability, being an attack skill, passive skill, or an out-of-battle exploration skill. And once you hit a certain point, the jobs expand up to level 15, which allow for some incredibly broken abilities. Every character can equip a main job and a sub-job, and the way that you build your party is entirely up to you. The freedom to combine skills, say a Black Mage's elemental spells with a Shield Master's tanking abilities, leads to dozens of strategies. However, some are much more powerful than others. The Thief skill, Godspeed Strike, outshines most everything else until the very end of the game, leading to battles becoming just brave 4 times with all 4 characters and spamming Godspeed Strike with every turn. Most bosses can't survive this, so it kind of kills all difficulty, even on the hardest difficulty level. With that being said, if you want to play fair, and you enjoy fine-tuning party composition, experimenting with builds, and optimizing loadouts for specific encounters, this system rewards that kind of engagement deeply. The job synergy system also scales in challenge as regular enemies become more complex. The game demands you rethink your party configuration on a regular basis. However, that was one of the main complaints. Every single boss employs a counter of some kind that prevents you from just using the same party composition throughout the entire game. For example, one boss might counter a white magic spell with a buffing spell, or countering all physical attacks with a full party high damage attack. It aims to change how you approach bosses, but more often than not, it just forces you into a certain party formation, kind of destroying the whole purpose of the job system in the first place. Have you played Bravely Default 2 before? Did you like the job system? Let me know in the comments below. I make sure to read each and every one of them. One last thing I want to just briefly mention is the equipment system. In the previous Bravely games, each job class had an affinity for each type of equipment. For example, a Black Mage would get higher stats from a dagger or staff than if they equipped a katana or heavy armor, whereas a Shield Master would get less stats from a staff, but higher stats from a shield, heavy armor, or a sword. That system is still present in Bravely Default 2, however, it also introduces a weight system. Each job class has a weight limit that raises with character levels. If you exceed this weight limit, then your stats begin to decrease. A white mage has a much lower weight limit than, say, a bastion, so you will want to equip things like light hats and robes as opposed to heavy armor and helms, so you don't exceed that weight limit. I kind of like this feature, because when you enter a town, you no longer just buy the highest stat equipments. You actually have to think about what you buy, depending on your job loadout. It adds a bit of strategy and customization to equipment, and I love having a bit more depth and mechanics to something as simple as equipment loadouts. I can see why it might be a deterrent to some people, but I really like thinking carefully about what to equip on each party member. Exploration follows traditional RPG design. You travel across a world map, visit towns, explore dungeons, and manage your gear. There's also a unique passive feature that lets your ship gather resources in real time while the game is in sleep mode. An interesting idea that can give you extra money, job point spheres, or permanent stat boosting items, though it's not essential to progression. This was changed in the PC version because you really don't put your games in sleep while you're playing games on PC. Instead of leaving the game on in sleep mode for up to 12 hours, it was reduced to 3 hours of gameplay. That being said, the rewards are all exactly the same. Visually, Bravely Default 2 has a very distinct aesthetic. Every town looks incredibly unique. Each one is hand-painted with a layered, almost diorama-like style. They feel alive, especially when you use the panorama mode to zoom out and view the entire town. Character models, however, might not be as loved by everyone. They're slightly exaggerated with large heads and simplified proportions, which works well enough in motion, but it may look dated in stills or cutscenes. I personally love the art style myself. It's not quite top of the line or amazing by any means necessary, but it gives the game a unique feel, even if the graphics aren't that great. Dungeons are functionally designed, but visually repetitive. There's not a lot of environmental storytelling or interaction, and while they serve their purpose, they don't feel as inspired as the towns or overworld. They're essentially the same hallway in a different skin. It's unfortunate because it kind of kills any sort of excitement you might have when you go to a new dungeon. Now musically, I've talked about this several times. This game, musically, is exceptional. Composer Revo returns from the original Bravely Default and delivers a dynamic and a varied soundtrack that enhances literally every part of the game. From boss battles to peaceful village themes, the audio work is consistently polished, with strong use of instrumentation and tempo changes that match the pacing of the action. Honestly, it's up there as one of my favorite soundtracks, however, some of the later world map themes don't exactly sound the best. They're all similar and based off the same tune. However, they're all themed to the area you're in, which sounds good in theory, but honestly, sometimes it just sounds awkward and sometimes it's just terrible. The original world map theme is by far the best. Voice acting is available in both English and Japanese. Now, I played 99% of it in English because I prefer English voice acting, but the performances are solid across the board, though some characters have stronger delivery than others. The English localization in particular gives each party member a clear and distinct voice, both literally and in terms of personality. Elvis's voice actor is easily my favorite. He has a Scottish accent, and every time he talks, it just makes me smile. Bravely Default 2 is a long game. Expect 50 to 60 hours for the main story playthrough, and significantly more if you're pursuing every single side quest, secret boss, and you want to master every job. The game is structured into chapters, each introducing new regions, story developments, and job unlocks. Early chapters move quickly and feel rewarding. However, around the midpoint, the pacing starts to stall. Some chapters require repeated exploration of previously visited areas or completion of tasks that just feel like padding. It's almost as if Square Enix ran out of budget in the last 25% or so of the game. It's a shame because Bravely Default 2 starts off incredibly strong, only to fall off later on in the game. Late game content introduces more complex boss encounters and some additional narrative turns. While some of these pay off well, others may kinda stress you out and test your patience. The game does revisit a structure seen in the first Bravely Default, where repetition is used as a storytelling and gameplay device, which may divide players depending on their tolerance for grinding or narrative loops. I hope you want to refight every boss in the game because, while not necessary, you're gonna have to do it if you want to buff each and every job and reach your full potential. Side quests, they're plentiful, but not all are equal in quality. Some provide important job unlocks or narrative depth, where others are straightforward fetch or defeat type missions. There's this one side quest where you're supposed to deliver a lunch to this explorer. However, you run to take the lunch to the explorer and he's like, "Oh, I don't have a fork." So you run all the way back to town, grab the fork, then you have to run all the way back to the dungeon, drop it off, and then he's like, "Oh, I don't have a napkin." So then you have to run all the way back to his wife, grab the napkin, then take it back to him. Then he's like, "Oh, thank you, now I can eat my food. Please go report to my wife." Then you have to run all the way back to town. It's just padding. It's not fun. I really disliked it. Unfortunately, some character development for either your characters, past bosses, or NPCs are hidden behind these side quests. Those bosses seem very two-dimensional if you don't do their side quests. It's worth checking out which side quests are essential for progression or content access, especially since some are easy to miss. None are permanently missable, however it's hard to keep track of which ones you've done and which ones you're missing because there's nothing to track your quests in the game. Take it from me, if you want to do every single quest in the game, your best bet is to start a manual checklist on Excel or something. That way you know which ones you've completed and which ones you haven't. Bravely Default 2 is, well, it's a deliberate game. It's not chasing trends or fast-paced storytelling, it's focused on deep systems, on long-form exploration, and a slower, more reflective style of progression. It's one of those games that knows what it's doing and is more of a throwback to classic Final Fantasy. If you're looking for a game that has an amazing battle system, fun characters, and goofy humor, this is an excellent choice. The combat system alone is worth experiencing, and the job mechanics offer one of the more flexible, rewarding systems in any modern JRPG. That said, it won't be for everyone. The pacing can be inconsistent, some story elements lean heavily on genre tropes, and the visual style may not appeal across the board. But for those who appreciate the structure and spirit of classic role-playing games, with some welcome mechanical innovation, Bravely Default 2 delivers on that promise. Thanks so much for watching. Let me know, have you played Bravely Default 2? If so, how did you build your ideal team? There's tons of room for creativity. And if you're new to the series, I'd love to hear if this review helped you decide whether or not you want to give it a try. Be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel, and stick around for more reviews and JRPG lists featuring both modern and classic RPGs. This has been Shinky, thanks so much for watching, and until next week's video, have a wonderful day.